Welcome to the Our State Book Club podcast. I'm your host, New York Times bestselling author and North Carolina native Wiley Cash. In today's episode, we'll return to Asheville, North Carolina, where we sit down with author Denise Kiernan to discuss her book, We Gather Together, A Nation Divided, a President in Turmoil, and the historic campaign to embrace gratitude and grace. We'll talk about the historic precursors to our own Thanksgiving holiday, as well as the woman who made the act of giving thanks a national holiday. All right, Denise, thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for having me back.
So your latest book, We Gather Together, with that beautiful jacket we talked about during our time in the green room, is about Thanksgiving. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came, on a personal note, to be so interested in Thanksgiving and why you're thinking about that? I know that you and Joe, your husband, are known for multi-day Thanksgiving celebrations.
Yes.
So how did Thanksgiving come to mean so much to you?
Well, the multi-day Thanksgiving celebrations predate this book. So I love Thanksgiving. I have always loved Thanksgiving. I love that there is no particular belief system associated with it, so everybody can kind of feel a part of it, although it certainly has, as I get into in this book, a difficult history with regard to the original inhabitants of this continent, the indigenous peoples, and I do get into that in the book. But as growing up as a kid, I loved it. It was relaxing. It was about cooking with my family, which was always very important. And I've also spent some really wonderful Thanksgivings with other families that are kind of like second families to me. And I don't think I realized how much I loved Thanksgiving till I was living overseas for Thanksgiving. And I was living in Rome, and Thanksgiving came around, and we thought, of course, the Americans were going to get together and have Thanksgiving, and our Italian friends were going to join us and laugh at us, and it was going to be wonderful. There was food, so the Italians were on board.
Yeah.
And we're running around. Turkey you can find.
But you had to cook it with the oven door open.
That was France.
Oh, that was France. Sorry.
No, I've got
the oven was too small for the nerd.
France, that was after this. Yes, I had a Thanksgiving with friends in Paris. And we went to go find a turkey, which they had for the occasion. Still had some of its feathers in it, but that's fine. You knew it was fresh. And we came back. I thought it was one of the smallest turkeys I'd ever seen, and it wouldn't fit in the oven. So the oven door was cracked. So we all know how, everybody keeps their schedule. Turkey's in it, blah, blah, blah. And, it took a very long time to cook that bird. No, in Rome, the problem was finding cranberries. Yeah. And we could, the international grocery stores, such as they were at the time, there were one or two, but there weren't that many. If they had them, we were too late. At the end, I would have even settled. I like fresh cranberries, but I would have even settled for a good old can that just goes.
Yeah.
When that just makes that horrible noise when you drop it out of the can, and then you have ridges. Yeah. It's cranberry sauce when you have the can ridges on it. Would have settled for that. And that's what we ended up settling for. It turned out we had somebody's parents worked at FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, which is based out of Rome. And it was quite the quest. And I was like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why am I doing this?
Why am I taking this so seriously?
Why do I care?
Yeah.
And that just sort of got me thinking about, so I sort of had that realization. And then years later, I thought, well, why do we keep caring? And how did we get to this? Because I know this isn't how it started.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I wanted to know how it started.
Yes.
And then that opened up this entire story that I just, when you have that, oh my gosh, I never knew.
Yeah, and I got to put this in the book now.
I got to talk about this.
It's not only how did it start in the United States, the formal,
we didn't start
exactly.
it. Yeah.
But the formal christening of American Thanksgiving is discussed at length in the book. But you open with what you said at the top of the episode is there's not a particular religiousness or religious observance tied to Thanksgiving. And what you detail in the book is the many cultures around the world that have these Thanksgiving style celebrations that are part of their cultural traditions. And then we also have this slow kind of herky-jerky build up to Thanksgiving in the United States. So what were some of the things that surprised you when you really started researching about the breadth of Thanksgiving in other cultures?
So Thanksgivings were declared, and the actual word Thanksgiving goes back hundreds of years, long before this country existed. Thanksgivings would be declared. They might be declared in a religious sense by the head of a particular religious community, but they might also be declared by the Queen of England.
Yeah.
Yet we're declaring a day of Thanksgiving because we bested someone in battle. Or it might be we're declaring Thanksgiving because it's that time of year and we had a really good harvest. That is very similar to a lot of the ancient traditions that have been on this planet for a very long time. As long as humans have been here, they've had ways to come together and give thanks.
Yeah.
And so Thanksgivings were a big part of life. They were in Europe and using the actual word Thanksgiving. And then as Europeans came to America, that aspect they brought with them. So there were Thanksgivings for, making it a certain length of a journey for explorers who came to the to what was, North America at the time.
Well before the Pilgrims.
Oh my God, yes. So yeah, before the Pilgrims. And there were Thanksgivings. There were Thanksgivings in Canada. There were, and then there were Thanksgivings with folks who came over from England, who came over from Spain, who came over from France. And then, during the colonies, they would declare, the repeal of John Adams, I think somewhere it's in the book. I hope I'm quoting this right. John Adams, in one of his letters is, a day of Thanksgiving for the repeal of the Stamp Act or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. And then what I found really interesting was, I think it was a French Thanksgiving that predated Jamestown, where they performed a play.
That was in Canada.
Which might be the first European play.
Oh, I think they
in
say
the New
yes,
World.
In the New World, and that was up in Canada.
That's before Jamestown in 1607.
Yeah, there was Spanish explorers. There was what is now Texas. There was a Thanksgiving that definitely predated the Pilgrims. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Can you talk a little bit about these stops and starts with Thanksgivings in America?
Well, they were always in the background, right? Mm-hmm. So if we can just jump forward to colonial America, okay. One colony might have Thanksgiving in September because their royal governor said so. Mm-hmm. And another colony might have Thanksgiving in October or November. There might be more than one Thanksgiving in a given year. So again, they were declared for different reasons. And a lot of times they were around harvests. So a lot of times Thanksgivings did come in the fall. Mm-hmm. But as far as, for a lot of people, beginning to celebrate Christmas, they didn't like because they preferred Thanksgiving. Yeah. There were certain religious groups that did not like Christmas being, a huge celebration. So it was used in so many different ways, in so many different contexts. But one of the consistent themes was that of giving thanks for harvest. Mm-hmm. That was something, and that's actually one of the oldest, meanings for Thanksgiving too. So we come to, our main character, Josepha Hale. She was obsessed with Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times in places, Thanksgiving would be proclaimed by a governor. Mm-hmm. Thanksgiving this year will be on blank. Yeah. You just kind of waited to find out, or we're going to have one in the spring, or we're going to have one in the fall. And the day itself might actually be quite solemn, and people might go to religious services. But then there was usually, like a day or two after, there was feasting and there were games. And so there was this kind of combined way of celebrating. And Josepha Hale loved Thanksgiving, and her father was a Revolutionary War veteran. And the first president to declare a Thanksgiving for the entire, all of the colonies, or what was then the brand new United States, and saying every state at the same time on the same day. That was George Washington during his first term.
And you write so beautifully in the book that Sarah Josepha Hale probably wasn't aware of it because she was 1 year old.
Yeah.
I think it's just such beautiful. The writing is so beautiful.
Oh, thank
right
you.
there when you tell us that.
Thank
part.
you. She was quite something. She was quite inspirational.
Well, let's talk about her after the break.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back with Denise Kiernan. Elon University is proud to support the Our State Book Club. In the same way great authors bring North Carolina stories to life, Elon is committed to fostering knowledge, creativity, and lifelong learning across our state. Discover how Elon University shapes thoughtful leaders at www.elon.edu. We are back with Denise Kiernan, and before we went to the break, we were talking about this woman, Sarah Josepha Hale, and the role she played in Thanksgiving. But before we talk about the role she played in Thanksgiving, can we talk about the role she played in women's publishing, in abolition, and kind of putting women's voices forward? I mean, she was as revolutionary as anyone who signed the Declaration of Independence or the American Constitution.
So this is a woman, Sarah Josepha Hale, with zero formal education because she wasn't allowed to have one.
Sure.
She got what I call the piggyback education. She had older brothers who came home and told her what they had learned. She also grew up in a house full of books, and her parents got her to read voraciously. So that was her education. Then she married a man who basically they had study hour every night, which was one of my favorite things to learn about her.
8 to 10, I
Yes,
think.
they sat in their parlor, and like one night it might be French, and the next night it might be biology. And it was like a mini little book club learning, time they had together. And she also started to do writing, and her husband encouraged her to, try and get published. Well, he dies tragically. It's not giving away too much, but
and she'd had a lot of tragedy in her life. Just an unimaginable amount of
it
tragedy.
It was a rough time to live. So here she is, a widowed mother of 5. Her 5th child was born shortly right after her husband died. With no formal education, who's trying to get published.
Yeah.
And she does. And it is seen by, and she kept at it, and she gets approached by Louis Gaudy, who was, a big publisher of women's magazines at the time, and asked her if she would take over as editor. And so this, widowed mother of 5 with no formal education becomes the editor, or editress, as she called herself, of the most influential Godey's Ladies book, which went through a couple different names, but the most powerful magazine in the country, really, with this massive circulation. And she was sitting at the top of it, and it had helpful hints. It had recipes. It had recipes for cures, because a lot of that was done at home with what you had. It had lots about books and writing and authors and reviews, and it might have commentary on the events of the day. And what I loved about Sarah Josepha Hale, is that, here she's found herself in this incredible position of power, and she's, still writes, and she would write in her magazine.
And she wrote novels too.
But she lifted up other writers.
Yes, especially female writers.
She lifted up a lot of female writers, and she also, gave voice to, young up-and-comers who no one knew. One of my favorite stories that is in the book is, she publishes this young upstart guy who, she puts him in the magazine, and she would critique the people. And she said, he, needs this and needs that and is in want of this and want of that, but shows some real genius. And her son, David, who was at West Point, he went to school with this guy and said, I told my friend, Edgar, what you said about his work, Edgar Allan Poe. And she was one of the ones who helped launch Edgar Allan Poe's career. And they stayed close throughout his entire life, which was too short.
And she also gave a platform to Lydia Maria Child.
Yes.
One of the foundational voices of
Lydia
abolition.
Maria Child. I mean, and Lydia Maria Child was someone who suffered a lot because she spoke out for what she's. And in fact, Sarah Josepha Hale took over one of Lydia Maria Child's editing responsibilities when she wasn't allowed to
when she
anymore. And so it was, it was very nice to see that kind of, pay it forward. Sure. And she also she took it upon herself to write, it's basically like a 3-volume series of women, famous women in history. First of all, no one in the mid 1800s thought women could be famous. Yeah. And certainly didn't think they were worth,
literature.
A huge 3-volume set of women in history. So did so much. And it's, and I talk about this all the time when, I'm talking to groups or students or whatever, is record what's going on now, because if you don't, we lose it. Yeah. And value everybody's experiences now, because if you don't, we lose it. We'll never know it was there, because you can see when you start to do research in, for the 1800s, or like for the book Obstinate Daughters that is my next book, 1700s, it gets harder and harder to find, to get information, tangible information, about folks who weren't, famous. Yeah. Or weren't in charge. Yeah. And so for her to take the time and to use her position to just kind of, celebrate others, especially other women, is really, it's a gift. Yeah. It was a gift.
And also her curiosity, her novel, I can't remember the name of it, but where she wrote about the North and the South. Yes. Way before Harriet Beecher Stowe was thinking about doing those things.
Exactly.
And she was just curious about kind of this fractured country before the country really knew how fractured it was. Yep. That leads into a discussion about Sarah Josepha Hale
wanting to bring everybody together.
And her sidekick, the second in command there, was, of course, Abraham Lincoln. So can we talk about that? Can we talk about that move toward consolidating her reach, her power? We talk about internet influencers today.
Oh my God,
was there a bigger influencer than Sarah Josepha Hale?
No, this woman.
She's like Martha Stewart meets,
Kim
Susan
Kardashian, Susan Sontag. Yeah, exactly. She was all those. Yeah, she was all those things, and she would say something, and people paid attention, and there was not another magazine that had a higher circulation than hers. Yeah. She was obsessed with Queen Victoria. In fact, when Queen Victoria rose to the throne, she wrote in her magazine, she said, mark my words, one day we will talk about, her age, the way we talk about, and she was right. We do talk about the Victorian age. Queen Victoria wore a white wedding dress. Oh my goodness. So Sarah Josepha Hale puts a picture of it in her magazine and writes about white wedding dresses. What do we use today? Yeah. White wedding dresses. Queen Victoria, they had a Christmas tree. Sarah Josepha Hale puts a picture of a Christmas tree in a magazine. Guess what we start doing? We start having Christmas trees. It was unbelievable. She, as a young teacher, would write stories about what she saw every day. She saw a lamb following one of her students to school. What does she do? She writes a poem called Mary Had a Little Lamb. This, which was also the first, when Thomas Edison first recorded, it was Mary Had a Little Lamb. Yeah. It's the stuff that she had a hand in was tremendous. Loved Thanksgiving. Was a big fan of early, early statehood because her father was a Revolutionary War veteran. And she was like, we need to come together. And she hated the idea of the union that her father had fought for to get independence from Britain totally splitting. And so she talked about, let's have one Thanksgiving, let's have one Thanksgiving on the same day every year throughout all the states. Let us all come together and do it at the same time. And it took a while to get people on board with that, but she would not give up. She wrote about it in her magazine. She wrote ambassadors. She wrote the heads of territories that weren't states yet. She petitioned 5 presidents, and most people were like, whatever, who cares? We have these, it ain't, it ain't broke.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the Civil War, it was Abraham Lincoln who said, yes, let's do that.
It's a fascinating story. So I want to close out this episode, given your wonderful book about Thanksgiving, its historical implications, its mutations, its myths, which we didn't get a chance to really talk about.
And the myths are in the book. How we developed the myth.
Tell us just real quick about how did we develop the myth of Thanksgiving?
Well,
the Pilgrims and the Native
real quick,
Americans.
I don't know, but the Pilgrims were in presidential declarations of Thanksgiving, which we still have to this day. Every year, the president declares when Thanksgiving is going to be. Wasn't a law until Congress. Wasn't a congressional act until World War II. Thanksgiving. It was actually FDR was the first president to ever even mention Pilgrims in his Thanksgiving proclamation. And it really, if you look at the older proclamations and you look at the older celebrations, the Pilgrims didn't have anything to do with it.
Fascinating.
So it was very interesting to see. Some of it was anti-immigrant sentiment in the late 1800s, early 1900s that, really wanted to, celebrate only a certain aspect of, early America. So it was one of those things that just kind of got, but it's amazing how long Thanksgiving existed without
the Pilgrims.
That. And, we've had fits and starts with kind of getting rid of it. 70s, we were close to actually giving it the old, that aspect of the story, the old heap-ho. But you have to keep, reminding everybody every Thanksgiving that, the story a lot of us were told as kids, not quite true.
Yeah.
And hers is more, the truth is more interesting.
Sure, yeah.
Sarah Josepha Hale is more interesting. So not even is the, the exploitation of indigenous peoples, that whole story, that whole myth, not only is that false, the real story is fascinating.
It is
so
fascinating.
Let's just tell the real story.
Well, let's get real about some Thanksgiving dishes. What are your top 5 that you want to see on the table every year? That you and Joe are going to crank out. Or maybe 3. Just what are ones that you know?
Cranberry sauce.
Cranberry sauce, yes. Well, how do you like cranberry sauce?
Okay, so obviously cranberry sauce, since that probably started the book with cranberry sauce. Fresh cranberries, sugar, orange peel. Orange peel is very important. Cinnamon.
You grate the orange peel?
No, I actually twist it and let it simmer with Zinfandel and sugar and let's see, star anise, clove, cinnamon, cardamom. I'm leaving something out, but that kind of almost like mulling wine spices.
Yeah. And what do you eat it with? Everything?
Oh, I eat it with everything. I mean, certainly people like, it's a sauce. You're supposed to just put it on things. I can eat a bowl of cranberry sauce. And I actually always make extra and keep it so that I can just have it later. Mashed potatoes. I'm all about the sides.
Yeah. Oh, the sides.
Mashed potatoes.
Thanksgiving.
I love mashed potatoes. Stuffing. Stuffing. I mean, honestly, those are, and stuffing, I really didn't like my mother's stuffing that much. My mother was an amazing cook, But I wasn't crazy about her. I wasn't crazy about her stuffing.
What was it that you do different?
She put what I do. Well, she actually put raisins in it and liver.
No, thanks.
And yeah, no, and that was apparently a thing at the time. I don't know why. But I mentioned this to someone else who grew up when I did this, and my mom did the same thing. No, I'm like, give me some sage and give me some sage and butter and lots of onions and
Some celery.
Yeah, celery, carrots, maybe.
But no raisins.
Keep it simple. No raisins, no liver. But cranberry sauce, I could eat that, a bowl of it with a spoon.
Do you like a turkey that's just roasted in the oven, salt and pepper, or do you like the more elaborate infused turkeys with?
We don't do turkey anymore. So
what do y'all do?
we're vegan, so we don't do so we don't do turkey anymore. But before,
So it is all about the sides.
It's definitely. I mean, it always was all about the sides. But now it's definitely all about the sides. So yeah, no, I always thought that turkey, when I was eating turkey, I always thought turkey should just be salt, pepper, butter, call it a day.
Yeah.
Like, don't overcomplicate.
Yeah.
Don't overcomplicate
Get
it.
back to the sides.
Yeah.
Well, Denise, this has been so fun.
Thank
so
you.
interesting. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for coming to visit.
Elon University believes in the power of stories to engage and inspire our community. That's why Elon is proud to sponsor the Our State Book Club, showcasing conversations with writers who reflect the heart of our state. Learn how Elon University is igniting discovery and dialogue in North Carolina at www.elon.edu.
From day one at Elon University, you're empowered. Engaged learning, meaningful mentorship, celebrated individuality. Transform your potential into purpose and become a leader the world needs at Elon University.
What might it be like underneath the sunrise in a state of flight? Coming back on me, it seems wonderful, the wandering mountain birds on a beach. Never moments ever wasted, turning away from your love. Honeybees, gardens of sweeter fruit, never tasted, no turning to other things. Will you be, will you seem? Sweeter fruit, never tasted, don't turn your back on me. Mountains pushing into the sea, mountains into